Hey there, it's Sam, down here by the water in San Francisco, near the ferry building, and I'm going to talk about the intense energy right now. We have several very concentrated placements. Take a look at this. Isn't that cool? We have Venus about to move forward. In fact, as you see, this Venus has probably just gone direct in Taurus. It's also joined Jupiter. Venus and Jupiter are very close, and the South Node. This in itself is a very important placement, which I'll discuss. The other thing is Mars, as I had blogged about and talked about, has just moved into Virgo after being in Leo for 8 months, almost 8 months. This is a huge shift. I mean, and it's not just that it changed signs, but it changed something that had been like almost an 8-month mindset. It's a huge shift from what we were doing since November of last year. And that has also just changed. We have a lot of earth signs involved here because, of course, Virgo is an earth sign. Mars moving into Virgo is a transition, leaving that inspirational section of the sky, which has to do with Leo, and moving into a sign that's more practical. So one of the big upshots that I'm noticing and I'm experiencing with myself and with others that I know is this whole kind of like purification and cleaning out of our environment, for instance. I don't know if you've had the compulsion to just like throw everything away or carefully scrutinize everything in your life. Some loud children over there. Like scrutinize everything in your life and say, is this really valuable? Is that really valuable? Do I really need this? Not just with things like personal things and personal habits and routines, but also with stuff, the stuff in your life. And of course, that also may include people that you've been involved with. This has been talked about for months, as I have been saying for months, that the whole issue with Taurus has to do with values, what's most valuable, our value system, and things like that. This is what it comes down to on some level, is our possessions. This is why our possessions and the things we have wind up being an expression of our values. And if we're just hoarding stuff, and it can become a lot of clutter. Ketu brings an intense focus and scrutiny on things. And Ketu joined Venus and Jupiter has brought about this intense scrutiny around what we find is most valuable, which is Venus, and Jupiter, which is our long-term ideals and teachings and principles. So it's basically a thing where we're saying, is this stuff, is this habit, is this activity, is this thing that gives me happiness and pleasure really a reflection of my long-term vision, my long-term principles, my spiritual goals and pursuits? And Ketu is there scrutinizing it, and it's around Taurus themes, which have to do with deeply entrenched values, habits, people, and stuff. Things that we have gathered and held on to that are an expression of value to us. Because that's really what the things in our life that we have made a commitment to keeping and buying and holding on and bringing into our house and storing in the closet, those things are an expression of something that's valuable, because other things we've thrown away, we've gotten rid of, but there are things that we have that are an expression of our values and value system. Not just things, but people as well. So we have this in Taurus, and then on top of that, we have Mars just went into Virgo. Now, of course, again, I just talked about this last week, that Mars in Virgo is very much about, a real metaphor for that is like weeding the garden. If you want to grow flowers in Libra, you have to weed the garden in Virgo, right? You have to prepare the earth for the beauty you want to create. And I use the metaphor of Leo as the sign of the king and of the kingdom. Mars had been in Leo since November. And Mars is like the general of the army who trains the troops, makes them strong. And the army is like the power of the kingdom to defend itself. And so Mars in Leo since November had been really orienting our courage and our strength and our discipline toward things that are building a kingdom. Let's say, for instance, that the kingdom is at war. Let's say that we're at war over something, which Mars and Leo can tend to feel like there's a war. Like there's a war. Mars is always somewhat related to warfare and destroying something that's making us weak. When it's in Leo, it's literally like the kingdom itself is at stake, kind of like all the time. And it's actually a very good placement for Mars, because when Mars is oriented toward preserving the kingdom and fighting for something that's righteous, that's really good. But then, let's say Mars moves into Virgo after you've won the war. Let's say Mars in Leo is very much about winning the war. It's consistent fire. It's not just going to be impulsive and reckless in the moment to try to win some little battle. Mars in Leo is oriented towards fighting the battle to win the war for the kingdom. That's why it's very good there. But then after that, let's say you've won the war, then Mars goes into Virgo. Now you have to manage and organize all of those things. You've won the war. Now you have what's left. You have the kingdom that you need to get in order. So this is why, again, this also kind of reinforces that wanting to throw everything away kind of thing, or wanting to purify your environment. Because let's say in your life, instead of metaphorically, you've been in defense of things and aligning your courage with things that are very big and mighty and enduring. And you've been doing that for 8 months. It's been a long fight. So now you've won the fight, but now you realize, well, I can't create this wonderful kingdom if I'm mired in junk. So it's a good time to really, again, go and clean out things that are not reflective of your higher values and principles and where you want to go in your life now. This is why we're feeling this restlessness also with Mars in Virgo. He wants to clean up the kingdom. The king on the throne has a lot of duties, and then Mars goes into Virgo and he needs to delegate that authority around. And what he does is he gets the minister to do it. The minister, which is actually Mercury, who is the ruler of Virgo, is the one who delegates the duties of the kingdom. And so that's what we're experiencing with Mars now in Virgo. So you have to find ways to delegate responsibilities and duties that you don't do well, can't do, or what have you. If this is relevant in your life, it certainly is in mine. It's interesting how I'm really going through a renaissance of like outsourcing and other things in my business that have just changed. A big part of it is that delegation. So there's a lot of things that are moving forward now, especially since Saturn and Venus are also moving forward, that revolve around these earthy, practical things in our life. Of course, Saturn started moving forward on Monday, and this is a recommitment to our long-term plans and practically putting them into place. We had been reflecting upon those things since early February when Saturn went retrograde. So deepening our commitment to those things is also really important to those long-term structures in your life. So right now a lot of things feel in transition for sure, but it's been a lot of big changes with this Venus retrograde. Now Venus, Jupiter are very close to Ketu. Ketu's in between the two of them, so we're having this struggle between what feels good in the moment and whether or not it's taking me to my long-term goals. A lot of it is oriented towards literally the structures in our life and the stuff we have in our life, and saying, is this really serving my long-term purpose, which is Jupiter, or am I buried in clutter? And Mars in Virgo is affirming the same thing. So, big stuff.